Yeah, suspect secured. I need someone get me a defibrillator right now. With a bleed kit, please.
You fell on a knife, right?
It started as a night of laughter, drinks, and harmless fun among friends. But when a drunken prank goes too far, the mood shifts, and the consequences turn deadly. One man wakes up to find his eyebrow shaved off. It's a joke to everyone else, but to him, it's a humiliation he can't laugh off. Fueled by alcohol and rage, tensions explode. And in a sudden moment, a friend reaches for a kitchen knife and plunges it into his heart, not once, but twice. This is the chilling story of how a harmless prank turned into a brutal murder. Friday had arrived, and as usual, three friends, David Eaton, Matthew Higgins, and Wayne Webb, met up for drinks. It was a ritual they had kept alive for over a decade. Their friendship ran deep, forged through years of shared stories, inside jokes, and the unshakable comfort of knowing exactly who would always show up. Meeting for a few casual drinks was nothing special. It was just what they did, a routine, something easy, familiar. But this time, their usual gathering would take a dark turn none of them ever saw coming. David and Matthew were the closest of the three, known in their village for their drinking problems and a string of regular run-ins with the law. The two were very much alike. After a day of heavy drinking, the trio headed back to Matthew's home to keep the party going. As the night wore on, the drinks took their toll on David, and he eventually passed out on Matthew's sofa. Matthew and Wayne were still awake, continuing their night. The two were always up for a laugh, and when they saw David asleep on the sofa, one of them suggested a prank. Giggling, they decided to shave off David's eyebrow. Their intentions weren't malicious, it was just a funny joke, something they did whenever they got drunk. In a video posted by Wayne 4 months earlier, he was seen shooting a toy crossbow at another friend who was asleep.
Oh, straight on the noggin!
It was clear these pranks were a regular part of their boisterous, harmless fun. After cutting off David's eyebrow, they laughed it off and carried on with the night. But in the morning, David woke up, and when he discovered his missing eyebrow, he didn't find it funny at all. By the time David was awake, Wayne was already gone, leaving Matthew to face the backlash. The confrontation quickly turned violent. David lashed out, punching Matthew, and then, as Matthew fell to the floor, kicking him repeatedly. It was clear who had the upper hand in the fight. It was David. Trying to end the chaos, Matthew told David it hadn't been him who shaved the eyebrow. It was Wayne. Believing Matthew, the two shrugged off their fight and went about their day as usual. But not long after, another argument broke out on the street, where the two were seen fighting again. By now, Matthew and David go their own separate ways. Matthew returns home, and David returns to his girlfriend's house, Emma Deed. But he's still angry about his eyebrow, so it wasn't long before he headed back out. This time, he was going to confront Wayne, who had been blamed by Matthew. Arriving at Wayne's, he asked him if he had done it, but Wayne swore on his mother's life he had no idea what he was talking about, and David then realized it must have been Higgins, as he already suspected. From there, David and his girlfriend headed back to Matthew's home, where David started banging on the door. When Matthew opened it, David immediately punched him. A quick scuffle broke out until Matthew told David, "I'm not putting up with this," and headed to the kitchen. David followed, and as he did, Matthew grabbed a kitchen knife from a stand on the worktop. David screamed, "Knife! You've actually stabbed me! Emma, he stabbed me!" Matthew just plunged a knife into David twice, striking his heart both times. With his hands covered in blood, Matthew ran past David's girlfriend and into the street, telling a neighbor, "Best ring an ambulance. I just stabbed my mate. He was f***ing doing my head in."
I need an ambulance, please. Somebody's fighting, he said somebody's been stabbed, the lady screaming.
Someone's being stabbed?
I think so.
Police, air ambulances, and paramedics rushed to the scene. Within 5 minutes, rapid response officers arrived and found Matthew Higgins inside the house, attempting to give first aid to David.
234, 1 confirmed stabbed, heavy bleeding to the chest. Can we move him away from the door, mate?
Well,
Is he breathing?
Need to hold.
Is he breathing?
I don't know.
Medical professionals quickly took over and Matthew stepped out of the room. Moments later, he was arrested by one of the officers.
Matty, come here. What's happened? Come here a sec. At the moment, you're under arrest, alright? So we figure out what's going on. You're under arrest for suspicion of grievous bodily harm.
What about the dog?
We'll sort it, but you're secured at the moment. Is there anybody else in the house?
No, he fell on a knife. Where? He actually fell on a knife.
Yeah, suspect secured. I need someone get me a defibrit right now. With a bleed kit, please.
What's the drill, bud?
Sorry, mate.
What's the drill? How's it
Okay,
doing?
so it's 1604, okay? You are further under arrest for murder. Okay, you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention one question.
Murder?
Something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do
Has
say
he
may be
passed
given
away?
in evidence. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand he's dead.
So, murder.
So he's dead.
So,
Yes or no?
I'm not going any further into it, but at this current moment, you're
Alright.
under arrest for murder, okay?
Alright. Sweet. He fell on a knife, right?
Been in the court.
Not proud of it. That's what it is. Can't believe it's dead, man. Glitches.
The holding cell quickly turned volatile. While in custody, Matthew Higgins erupted, headbutting an officer in a sudden violent outburst that took multiple officers to control. When questioned, he clung to the improbable claim that David had simply fallen on the knife. Yet, his frantic flight into the street shouting that he had stabbed his friend had been overheard by numerous witnesses, painting a starkly different picture. Eventually, the truth surfaced. Matthew admitted it was no tragic accident, that he had in fact intended to stab David, though he still insisted it was an act of desperate self-defense driven by fear. Meanwhile, David's girlfriend, Emma Deed, was also taken in for questioning. She recounted how David had confronted Matthew about the prank, leading to a physical altercation before the two men disappeared inside. Then, a chilling scream. David's voice, crying out that Matthew had a knife, followed by her name, and the terrifying declaration that Matthew had stabbed him. She pleaded with Matthew to drop the weapon, but he refused, vowing David would never lay hands on him again. She recalled that David uttered a final, sorrowful sorry before collapsing. Emma was ultimately released without charge. Matthew Higgins, however, faced the grave accusations of murder and assaulting an emergency worker. In court, he maintained his not guilty plea to murder, clinging to the self-defense narrative. Despite his claims, he was found guilty of murder, though he pleaded guilty to the assault charge. The judge handed down a life sentence with a minimum of 18 years behind bars. What started as a night of innocent fun among friends ended in unthinkable tragedy. A drunken prank, meant as a laugh, instead ignited a devastating chain reaction of violence, betrayal, and ultimately, death. David Eaton, at just 37 years old, lost his life over a shaved eyebrow. His once close friend, Matthew Higgins, transformed into a killer in a moment of rage and panic. For David's children and everyone who loved him, life would be irrevocably shattered. This chilling story serves as a stark reminder of how quickly things can spiral when alcohol, volatile tempers, and poor decisions collide, and how one single desperate act can obliterate countless lives forever.